14 Bannerman Road is where Sarah Jane Smith lived.
And 14 Bannerman Road is the name of my podcast about it. This time, I have the Gorgon Parts 1 and 2. Part 1, first broadcast on the 1st of October 2007. Part 2, first broadcast on the 8th of October 2007. Both written by Phil Ford, and both directed by Alice Troughton. So, we start off, we seem to have got rid of the little monologues now, and we're going straight into a cold open of a lady who we then learn is called Mrs. Randall, being haunted by a nun. She appears to be in a retirement home, a lot of very dramatic music. She's tucked up in bed and the nun's in her bedroom and she's going, the nun, and then, roll titles. And we find out that the gang has heard reports, so they're investigating. But the gang, there's no Maria in the gang, it's Clyde, Luke, and Sarah. And I believe Mrs. Randall is a friend of Clyde's nan, I think, because at some point later in the episode, Clyde says he's the one, who tipped them off about it. So, other people in the retirement home have seen this nun, and while they're talking to Mrs. Randall, Luke spots an old lady looking at him through the window. We cut then to Maria's home and find out that Chrissy is staying at Maria's because she's having some kind of relationship trouble. Maria seems to be quite happy about this, gives her a big hug. Alan is not. Come back to retirement home. The lady is befriending Luke, and it appears that she has Alzheimer's or dementia. Sarah's asking a lot of questions, and the lady in charge of the home, Mrs. Cribbins, she is brushing Sarah off. So she's obviously hiding something. The lady who Luke is befriending, who we later learn is called B, or we might learn at the time, but it took me a little moment to pick up all their names. She's given Luke a talisman, right? And she has quite cryptically just said that he needs to keep it hidden from her. Now, who her is, we can assume maybe it's the nun. I mean, the episode's called Eye of the Gorgon. Maybe it's the Gorgon. Luke needs to, take this talisman and keep it safe. Mrs. Cribbins spies this through binoculars, a lovely shot of her holding the binoculars up to her face, peeking through the window. And so we're going back and forth between this retirement home and Maria's home. So Maria and Chrissy argue because Chrissy doesn't like how much time Maria is spending with Sarah Jane and Luke and thinks that they're weird. Maria obviously gets very defensive about this, and she tells Chrissy to get out, and has a bit of a cry and everything. Clyde, cut back to retirement home again. Clyde is kind of a bit annoyed by Mrs. Randall because he's saying, "Oh, can you help me out, do all this stuff?" And Sarah says, "Well, hey, one day you'll get old, and you might need people to help you out." And he says, "No, because by the time I'm 40, I'll be put in a robot to live forever." Two things about this, right? Sarah is quite disapproving of this. Possibly because of Cybermen. And also, the second thing, the guy who plays Clyde is probably 30 now. So we've only got 10 more years. We've only got 10 more years before we have to put people in robots. Oh, man. Crikey. So, as the gang, they go, well, there's something up with this retirement home, but we found out all we can at the moment, so let's drive home. As they drive off, we see the nun outside, and she's looking a lot more corporeal than your average ghost would. So, cut back to Maria. How many blimmin' back and forth have we done? I'm not sure how far we are into the episode, but everything happens very quick. I said this last time. It's They're efficient with they fit it into that 27 minutes. Um, so Alan's come into Maria's room. Maria's wishing that things were how they used to be. She's wishing that, her parents were never divorced, and that Chrissy had never left and gone and had a new relationship. And Alan is very lovely as always. He doesn't do an amazing job of consoling Maria, but not for lack of trying. He's pretty great. I love him. He's just a really good character. He always tries, and it's very nice. Um, Cut back to Mrs. Cribbins, the lady in charge of the retirement home. She's now gone off to a big church, right? At first I go, okay, that's a big church. A nunnery, perhaps. We later find out it's an abbey. We also later find out that it is confirmed that B has Alzheimer's. So basically, I was picking up on things and being like, well, it could be this, it could be that, and then the episode would later just confirm what option it was. And so Mrs. Cribbins, she gets let in by the nuns, and you're thinking, okay, so she's in cahoots there. If you hadn't already picked that up. Back to the attic now, where the gang is. Clyde, Luke, and Sarah. They're all in the attic. We get the Mr. Smith, I need you. He comes out the wall. It's at this point that I notice Sarah Jane's waistcoat. Brilliant fashion. It's like a kind of, the Doctor always has their costume, and it's usually there's like a coat involved, and it's like Sarah has just got like a little bit of a costume going on, but it's like you could also wear it out and about every day, and it just looks really good. I mean, I think last episode I picked up on her boots. She's got great boots. This episode she's got a great waistcoat. Because like everyone else is just wearing normal clothes. I mean, when they were at school, they were in school uniform. When they're out and about, they're just in normal clothes. But Sarah's just got this little like hint of, yeah, I've got a little bit of a doctory kind of style, and I love it very much. So when Mr. Smith wakes up, pops out the wall, he of course goes. He picks up that there's some alien tech that's been brought into the attic because Luke has brought the talisman with him. Clyde's just being very snarky. Up until this point in the episode, he's been very snarky, even not done an awful lot. Just picked up on that. It's just when he figures that when Mrs. Smith reveals that Luke has the talisman, Clyde, he just makes some snarky remarks. He acts them out very well, like very sort of convincing, as if it was something that he'd say. But I feel like some of his lines are a little bit over the top, but it's fine. It's not too bad. Mrs. Smith, he sees the talisman is there, but he doesn't know what, he doesn't know anything about it really. So he pops out a little tray, and they plonk it on the little tray, and he says he's going to have to, analyze it and stuff. So they just leave that there for now. Enter Maria, who, after getting angry at Chrissy and after not being particularly consoled by Alan, she's popped over the road to go and see Sarah Jane. She bursts in and slams the door, which annoys Sarah a bit. But then there's a lovely shot of this recognition in Sarah's face as she realizes something is up with Maria. And so she invites Maria to come with her and go and talk to B, because now that they all know that B's given Luke this talisman, they need to go and question B. Clyde wants to come because the haunted lady was a friend of his nan. Mrs. Randall. I couldn't quite hear if it was Randall or Randolph, but in the credits I think it said Mrs. Randall. Luke wants to come because he's the one who got the talisman. But they're both told, no, we got to stay behind. This is a bit of quality time with Maria and Sarah, which is a lovely thing for Sarah to do, really. And so Alan's given Chrissy a bit of a talking to, because he's like, well, you've upset my daughter, haven't you? And he's making some very good points, and he's saying everything in a very logical way. He's not really shouting at her. He's going, "Hey, no, right, there are issues here that we need to address." And he's doing it in a very mature manner, and he is the best, and I love him. The nuns, we come back to the nuns. They were looking for the talisman, and they were annoyed that Mrs. Cribbins has let it get away. So they say, we're going to take you to the abbess. So the church is officially an abbey. And there's a really quite a nice shot. So shot from behind, there's sort of a chair, and then on the arm of the chair is sort of a grody old clawed hand. And like that's great. It's like here's your monster. And so the abbess, she's got grody old clawed hands, and she's got a veil type thing over her face. It's not a veil in the sense that it's kind of see through. It's more like a kind of like a hood type thing. I guess it's still a veil. It's what it is, covering up her face. And she lifts this veil, and then there's a cut to outside, and we hear Mrs. Cribbins scream, which is great. And I almost wish that they kept that up. That we never really see her face, because she's a Gorgon. If you see her, you turn to stone. Mrs. Cribbins has been turned to stone as her punishment for letting the talisman get away. So I kind of wish we never actually saw the stone, and it was always just implied, because later on we do actually see it, and it sort of knocks it down a few pegs. The drama of it, it's about what you don't see in horror, isn't it? It's about what you don't see. So at this point, Sarah and Maria have turned up back at the home, and Mrs. Randall is saying that B has Alzheimer's, and B Nelson Stanley, that's her name. She mentions her husband, who we learn had died 5 years prior. We see B talking about her husband, and say that her husband says something about the Sontarans. Now, when did the Sontarans pop up in Doctor Who? I think they were, old Who. But in New Who, I'm trying to remember exactly when it was. It was definitely 10th Doctor, and there was Bernard Cribbins in it, I think. So there was Donna. So I'm thinking series 4. So I'm thinking they were slightly after. They were slightly after this episode, potentially. I'm not sure. But yeah, so Sarah obviously goes, "Hey, hey, something's up here." If she's chatting about Sontarans, there's a bit more to this than meets the eye. And it's it's potentially a little bit racist, because they say that the Sontarans are the silliest looking race, and it's like, well, don't discriminate on them based on their looks, okay? Discriminate on them based on the fact that they go around killing people. But Mrs. Randall, sorry. There's a lot of this was probably broadcast with subtitles, but I don't have any subtitles, and there's a lot of the names just being slightly. I'm not sure if there's some inconsistency of them, or if it's just I keep mishearing, because the main nun, I think in the credits it says Sister Helena, but I just kept hearing Sister Helen. So I'm not sure if they actually kept calling her Sister Helen, or if my ears don't work. But anyway, Mrs. Randall mentions B talking about a Gorgon, and brushes it off as some old film, which I think was a legit film, and she mentions some actors I can't remember the names of, but I think are legit actors. And B goes, very quiet about this, and I think it's interesting, the setting and cast. Really, I'm not sure if you really get a lot of things that are set around a retirement home, a retirement home, and sort of older ladies, and it's quite nice to have something a bit fresh and different, isn't it? Um, Cut back to 13 Bannerman Road. Now, is it 13 Bannerman Road? Or is it 21 something something in Cardiff? Because there's a shot of the nun at the door, and the door has a big old 21 on it that they forgot to remove. And it's like the shot is so focused on the door that it's almost impossible to miss. It's not some little thing in a background. The shot is set up, they're filming the door of 13 Bannerman Road, and it still says 21 on it. Oh dear. Anyway, if we were in any doubt about whether it's an abbey, the nun confirms it is an abbey, and she's saying, "Hey, well, I'm looking for this talisman. Do you know anything about this?" Clyde is quick to pick up that there's something wrong, that she's suspicious. We shouldn't give it away, but Luke isn't, because of course, his naivety. He gives them away, and Clyde says, "Hey, you shouldn't say, when people come snooping around asking about alien tech, don't say that you've got it." And he's like, "Well, I didn't." But he's basically said everything but, you know. So the nun's about to burst into 13 Bannerman Road and try and find the talisman when enter Alan. Because Alan's come across the road looking for Maria, and he's like, "Oh, hello, sister. Are you collecting for the abbey?" And he makes a habit joke, which is great. Like it's very like nobody laughs at it, but it's just a good joke. Well, it's not the best joke, but it tickled me, because he's like, oh, I always give to the uh I always give to the abbey. You could say that it's a good habit, and he's like, eh, and everyone's just staring at him, and I love him so much. Um, but he offers up a coin, but in his other hand is a note because he's just like got it out of his wallet or whatever, and then nicks the note and then walks off. Because Alan has scared her off, I guess. Just now there's an adult around, she doesn't want to, be seen breaking into houses and whatnot. So Clyde suggests that they go round to the retirement home, which I think is called Lavender Lawn or something. They've obviously, they've made a fake sign and whatever and just plonked it down at this place. So Clyde suggests that they go round there to tell Sarah, "Hey, the nun was snooping around. You need to be aware of this." And Luke says, "Well, why don't we just phone up? That's a lot quicker." But Clyde says, "Well, yes, we could, but if we go round there, we'll get back in on the action because we've been left out of it. And don't you want to get back in?" And they're like, "Well, okay, yeah, so sure." So they decide to go round there. But the nuns they're all in their hearse and they're watching and seeing that they've decided to go around there. So we come back to Sarah and Maria and B is saying that her husband Edgar dug up the talisman in Syria because he was an archaeologist apparently, and B says that the nuns mustn't find the talisman because they are protecting her. And we go, "Well, who's her?" And it turns out that her is the Gorgon, and the music goes dun dun. It doesn't quite go dun dun dun, but it gets close. And so Sarah and Maria seem to return to 13 Bannerman Road, not noticing that Luke and Clyde have gone out, which I find a little bit weird, but sure. They get a book of Greek myths, and Sarah says that the Greeks issuing each other challenges, such as slaying the Gorgon, must be some kind of man thing. And they're flicking through the book, finding out about the Gorgon, and finding about various versions of the story, because Maria doesn't seem to really know the story, and then later on in the episode, I think in part 2 actually, Bea's going, "Oh, what do they teach kids in school these days if not Greek myths?" I can't remember being taught any Greek myths in school, but I think I just picked them up. I don't know, probably Horrible Histories or something. Were there Greek myths in Horrible Histories? There was a bit in Horrible Histories where they got it wrong, and they said there was a Roman talking about Poseidon, and he should have been talking about Neptune, I think. Anyway. That's completely besides the point. The nuns catch up to Clyde and Luke because they're in a car and Clyde and Luke are just on foot. And Clyde says that the main nun probably doesn't have any legs under her robe, under her habit. Is habit the entire thing or just the head bit? I'm not sure. It says that she's probably got tentacles or something. And then the nun, Helena, says, "Luke, your friend watches too much TV," which is a weird thing to put in a TV show, isn't it? Just a tad, like, is my emotion broken? I don't know, but it's like, it's just, don't reference the medium that you're using. Isn't that a thing? You're not meant to do that. I don't know. It's fine. It just made me go, for a second. So Luke gets kidnapped by the nuns, kind of softly. They're just like slowly guiding him into the car, and he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't be doing this." And they're like, "No, no, 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 come on, you'll be perfectly safe." And then they grab the back of his head and shove him in. Clyde just gets yeeted away. They just give him a shove, and he goes flying. He gets up and starts running off to the hearse, but he isn't fast enough. So he phones Sarah and says, "What's up?" And Sarah has a flip phone. And I can't remember if it's just the same phone that she had last episode. I mean, nobody's like online has picked up on any continuity errors or something, so I guess it was. But I thought she had a slightly different phone. I don't know. Anyway, that's not important to the story in any way. What type of phone she has, but Clyde runs back to her, and like she picks him up in the car. So it's now Maria, Clyde, and Sarah in the car. Luke has been kidnapped. So they drive off to St. Agnes Abbey because that's what Clyde heard them talking about. It turns out that Sarah has many fake IDs. I have no idea if they're going to come up later or they're just going to be a thing that gets dropped. But I quite like them because it reminds me of like the psychic paper, but it's just she just has many fake IDs. And she gets inside and leaves Clyde and Maria to sneak around outside. But the nuns inside lock Sarah in a room because they know that like she's onto them. Maria and Clyde enter the abbey through a convenient window. And now here's our Dutch angles. Oh, I've missed them. They're coming up to a door and they're like, "Oh, look, we don't know what's behind the door inside this abbey, and it might be a Gorgon." And there's got the angles going on, and it's so we're not getting our angles on the villains, but at least they're in the episode. And so they go through the door, Maria and Clyde, and they find Mrs. Cribbins has been turned to stone. And then into the room enters the Gorgon. And then I made myself laugh by writing, "I do like a bit of Gorgonzola." Of course, a Wallace and Gromit reference. And that's the sort of reference that makes me laugh. I'm stupid, ignore me. So obviously Luke has already been kidnapped in this abbey. They've come to find him. So Luke's in the abbey. He opens the door to find Sarah, and Sarah says, "Hey, what were you doing getting in strangers' cars?" Which slightly makes up for last episode where she was like, "Hey, don't tell people about what we get up to. Keep the secret," which was very dodgy. So at least there's a bit of a message now about if a stranger says, "Hey, get in my car," don't do that. Not a smart move. And she says, "You're a very smart kid, but you can be very stupid sometimes, but they have a nice reuniting hug, and she doesn't mean it in a particularly mean way. She was just, she was just worried about him. But he says, "Hey, I didn't get in the stranger's car. I was kidnapped." Enter Helena. Uh, Obviously, Maria and Clyde have been caught, so now the whole gang is back together in this room in the Abbey. And here's where we get our sort of villainous monologue, our villainous explanation. It's Helena saying, "Hey, the Gorgons are aliens. They arrived here 3,000 years ago. There used to be three of them, but now there's only one. And the Greeks kind of embellished the snakes for hair thing, which is me going, they didn't have the CGI budget for snakes for hair, so that's why. Cool. Just write that little line in. Cool. And they're looking for the talisman, because the talisman is the key to the Gorgon portal back to their planet. At first I thought it was like the key to their ship, but no, it's just like a big portal. Why the portal is in an abbey in England when the talisman was buried in Syria, I have no idea. But sure. But they're saying, hey, look, the Gorgon here, they just call the abbess. I'm not sure if she's actually technically meant to be Medusa or one of the others. It's not, but Medusa's the famous one, so I guess. But they never call it Medusa. They say the abbess or the Gorgon. But she's old. They say she's very old, and all she wants to do is get this talisman so that she can go home to her home planet and die there. Okay, fair enough. But Sarah is like, well, okay, sure, sounds reasonable, but you have killed a lady by turning her to stone, and you've also kidnapped my kid, so, give me a reason to trust you. And Helen says, no, how about we don't give you any reason to trust us, we just keep Luke and Clyde hostage here, and you and Maria can go back to 13 Bannerman Road, and we'll follow you, and we'll get the talisman there. All right, and if you don't do this, we'll just kill Luke and Clyde. So they've not really got much choice, so they have to go along with it. So we come back to 13 Bannerman Road, and Maria suggests that the Gorgon is telepathically controlling the nuns because, why else would they be looking after her? What's their motivation for that? Which is quite clever. That's something that I didn't even pick up on. I like that. I like that people are quite clever in the show, and I like that. I don't like when it's. I don't like when there'd been episodes and episodes and episodes of Doctor Who, and I think it was Clara. I think it was Clara. It might have even been Bill. No, I think I picked up with Clara. I don't know. Anyway, there was this one of the companions was like, "What's a Dalek?" And I'm like, "Oh, we've got to go through this for the 17th time in case somebody's new to the show and they don't know what a bloody Dalek is." And it's like, let your characters be clever and let the audience pick things up from that, rather than the characters are stupid so you can explain it to the characters so that then the audience then is explained to it. Just, I like they're doing it right for this show. And at the end of the day, I'm not even sure why the what benefit to the plot there is for the nuns being telepathically controlled. But it's still, it proves that Maria's clever, and I like that. It's a very long roundabout way of me making that point, but hey. So we go upstairs, get the talisman from Mrs. Smith's little tray. He says, "Hey, I haven't finished scanning that, but it's fine." Come back downstairs. The Gorgon and the nuns, they're all in the living room. Sarah says, "Right, you let Luke and Clyde go, or I'll whip out my sonic screwdriver and I'll sonic the talisman." And the nuns say, "Okay, we have a Gorgon." So what if we just turn you to stone? And they start to reveal the Gorgon's face, and we actually see her face, which is like, there was prosthetics mentioned in the credits, so like I guess it's all prosthetics. So it's kind of just like heavy makeup. And they do actually have some kind of CGI/VFX budget, because a snake comes out from each of her eyes and her mouth. It's like some blue wispy snake. So Sarah Jane and Maria look away, but the talisman gets snatched from them. Enter Alan at the wrong time because the door was open. He walks in. He looks at the Gorgon. He gets turned to stone. And his statue form looks significantly less like him than Mrs. Cribbins' ones looked like her. But that's the big drama moment. And that's the end of part 1. So now for part 2, the nuns imply that more Gorgons are actually going to enter the world. Like, when they get the talisman, they're going to put it in the portal, they're going to open up the portal, all the Gorgons are going to come from their world, they're going to come to Earth, and they are going to bring salvation. Maria's crying. She blames Sarah for her dad. You know, if I'd never met you, my dad never would have come here. He never would have been, you know, turned to stone. He never would have just got stoned. But you know, Sarah sees her and she gives her a big hug and she comforts her and is very lovely. And you know, this very mature, lovely mum moment of not taking offense. She just knows, that Maria's going through hard times and needs a big hug right now, and it's really lovely. Back in the Abbey, Luke is saying that, you know, we can't trust the nuns because B was giving us warnings about them, you know, for good reason. And so Sarah must know that, and she knows not to trust the nuns, and so she's going to sort things out. And Clive says, yes, agreed, but we should still probably try and escape. So there's some books in the Abbey, so Luke's reading up, and he says, hey, there's a secret passage in here from the, like, Reformation times or whatever, when they were hunting priests and stuff. So they turn a porcelain statue of a Gorgon, and a wall opens up, which is very, like, I'm not sure how they've set this up, but sure, secret passage, whatever, I like it. Sarah and Maria go upstairs to the attic to Mr. Smith, who says that Alan isn't actually fully stone yet. I mean, it's not technically stone, but they give some kind of not technically scientific explanation for whatever it is he is, and they're like, oh, he's technically being fossilized or whatever. And they say that he's got 90 minutes until it's fully done, but in the meantime, it could probably be reversed, but he's not sure how. Which is, it's like, gee, thanks, Mr. Smith. That's always his thing. He's like, you could do this. I don't know how, though. It's like, this is a bit of alien tech. I don't know what it is. Oh, hey, you know the Slovene? Well, they're from this planet. I don't know much else about them. But the, like, tone of his voice, like the actual way it sounds is like implying flat robotic monotone. But the way he's being acted, he's actually got a lot of personality in his voice. And I wonder if that'll change after the big incident involving him that'll happen in the series finale. We'll have to pay attention to that and come back to it and see. So, once more, Maria and Sarah Jane go off to B in the retirement home to see if she can give them some more info so that they can give it to Mr. Smith. And in the meantime, Luke and Clyde have escaped to the, like, garden of the Abbey or whatever, which is absolutely full of stone people that the Gorgon has killed. There's a lot of dead people in this episode, right? All in this garden. And it's like, well, you don't get a shot of Sarah calling unit or anything about this, so what happens to them? Do they just stay there now as ornaments? It's too late for them. Their 90 minutes has passed. They're just a load of corpses, essentially. And Luke makes another snarky... Not Luke. Clyde makes another snarky comment about, oh, they're going to garden gnomes or something. Anyway, so Sarah's like, okay, Maria, can you stay here with B? Because I need to go and find Luke and Clyde. And before she leaves, she's like, you know what, Maria, you were right. I really shouldn't have got anyone else involved in this. And Maria says, no, look, I was very upset and angry. It isn't your fault. I wanted to see aliens. I insisted in getting involved in this. They have another hug. I love every single one of those moments. They're so well done. Back at the Abbey, because we can't stay in one location for 5 minutes. So something's happening here, something's happening here. Back at the Abbey, Luke and Clyde have snuck round to the front door to find the nuns and Mother Abbess are coming back, and they see that Mother Abbess is weak and she needs the portal to open to her world as soon as possible. They spot that the nuns have the talisman, so they know that something's gone wrong with Sarah. And all the nuns start walking around in circles chanting "Serve the Gorgon," and it's a bit much, but I guess it could be to do with like their telepathic thing, so whatever. And so they go over to the portal and they put the talisman in, and they're like, okay, we need 1 hour for everything to properly align, and then all the Gorgons will come through. And there's one nun, and she's the only other one to get speaking lines besides Helena. And she talks like a ship's computer, which, like, she's like, alignment at 20%. And I'm like, this might be a joke, possibly, but it seems really out of place, like it comes out of nowhere and is really weird. And like, it made me laugh, but it made me laugh because it was absurd. It didn't make me laugh because it was funny. So they say that Mother Abbess, she won't last another hour. They need to put her in a new body, which is, I mean, what coincidental timing, eh? The day that the talisman, the day that Luke and everyone turns up and gets the talisman is the day that Mother Abbess is going to die. Oh, what coincidental timing, eh? How, that's such drama. So back at the retirement home, Maria's having not a lot of luck with B. I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel about them using the Alzheimer's for drama, right? It's like, oh, she can't reveal anything. She can't have a lucid moment till the last minute because we need it to be really dramatic. But it's not it's not great. But it could be a lot worse. They're generally relatively sensitive about it. And so Sarah, she rocks up at the Abbey. She can't sonic screwdriver her way in, which is a nice nod to sonic devices being unable to work on wood because it's big wooden doors. But like they don't explain or mention that or anything, which I'm like, okay, that's quite neat. It's just one of these things where you got to pick up on. But I guess if you never knew it didn't work on wood, that would seem really weird. Anyway, so she has to hoik herself over a wall. Chrissy comes round to 13 Bannerman Road looking for Maria and Alan. New episode. I mean, they all shot this at the same time or whatever, but it's a new shot. It's a new shot. She's come round to 13 Bannerman Road, and they still haven't realised that they've left 21 on the door. So we get 2 shots across this 2-parter of 13 Bannerman Road with 21 written on the door, and it's, oh my goodness. You're pointing a camera at it. How do you not see? It's not in the background, it's you're pointing the... Anyway. She sees Alan, who's been turned to stone, through the window, so she breaks in through the window, and she thinks that Sarah is absolutely mad and has made a statue of Alan. But she has a bit of a heart-to-heart. Well, I mean, I guess it's just a heart, because it's not really a heart-to-heart because Alan's not replying or anything. Which is, I mean, in a way, that's kind of the point. She's like, okay, he can't reply. like she thinks this isn't Alan, it's just a representation of him. So she kind of has her softest moment of like, oh, maybe I am letting you down a bit and everything, and everything, and and guess what the Alan statue does? It lets out a single tear, and it's like, oh, okay, fine, I'll let you have that. Cut back to no. Before we cut back, I like that. I like that they've gone. Okay, Chrissy, she's got a very obnoxious personality, but let's not just make her the butt of jokes and everything. Let's give her a bit more depth and have these moments where she has a bit of introspection and everything, which is it's very nice. It's very that the people making this show know what they're doing, and it's very nice to see. Cut back to the Abbey. Luke is spying on the nuns. At this point, I've written that I'm finding it a little bit hard to keep track of everyone, and I like when they're all together, but it's fine, right? But we just got to get it in our head. Maria is at Bees. Luke and Clyde are here in the Abbey. Sarah's also in the Abbey, but in a different place, trying to find him. Luke is spying on the nuns, and Clyde thinks, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to ring the bells in the Abbey to distract the nuns so that Luke can run in, he can grab the talisman and narrowly avoid getting Gorgoned. Sarah runs in, she bumps into Luke and Clyde, and then they all get surrounded by chanting nuns, which seems like if Alan hadn't been Gorgoned, this seems like this would have been like the end of an episode moment. They're all coming in, serve the Gorgon, and they can't escape, whatever. But it's as it is, it's a little bit awkward. You just get lots of weird close-ups on nuns' mouths. But they all get put in some kind of dungeon. Sonic gets a Sonic. Sonic the Hedgehog turns up. No. Sarah gets her sonic screwdriver, her sonic lipstick taken off her. Clyde says it's fine because we don't need any Star Trek gadgets, which is, again, my immersion, kinda, I don't know. Is it more immersive because Star Trek is like in our same world where Star Trek also exists? Is it less immersive because it's another rival TV show? I don't know. Was Star Trek on in 2007? I don't know. I'm not a Star Trek fan, which isn't to say that I think it's bad. It's just to say that I never got into it. Huh. Anyway, what is it anachronistic for Clyde to be aware of Star Trek? I don't know. The nuns come in and they take Sarah, and Sarah seems very confident, like she's got it all figured out. But come back to a retirement home. Maria's crying with B about the dangers of adventuring, and you go on adventures and your dad gets turned to stone, and it's you can't go and have these grand adventures without consequences. Which some people have whole multi-season arcs about this, and she's like 3 episodes in, and it's like, damn, they are efficient, aren't they? And B says that she was once turned to stone, but Edgar saved her using the talisman, and that Maria should take her mirror because it's all Perseus, isn't it? It's a Gorgon. It's the Greek myth. So Sarah has twigged that Gorgons are parasites that need hosts. So when they come through the portal, that's the salvation. They're all going to take over, a bit of humanity, and then just use more and more people to live on. Presumably, they're running out of hosts on their own planet or whatever. I'm not sure. And this particular one has been in Mother Abyss for 200 years, and like all the nuns are like, well, it makes you live longer, and it's like, sure, but you're possessed, so it's not a great existence. So they now need to transfer from Mother Abyss. They need to transfer her over to Sarah. Luke finds a trowel, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to use it as a screwdriver. A screwdriver to unscrew the door." So they get the trowel, they put it in the screws, they unscrew the door, they get him and Clyde out of the basement, the dungeon, the whatever. Sarah gets forcefully blindfolded and prepared to be the new host. Luke and Clyde run in and try and help, but they get caught. Maria runs in with the mirror as they're revealing the Gorgon's face. As it's coming out to absorb into Sarah, she runs in, she shows the mirror, it pings off the mirror, it goes back and it turns the Gorgon itself to stone. A big sort of saviour moment that kind of a little bit comes out of nowhere. And also, all the nuns kind of looking, and like Maria is kind of like Clyde and Luke are there kind of looking, but none of them get turned to stone. It's a little bit you have to suspend your disbelief about who's technically looking where. But the Gorgon is turned to stone, so she's dead. The nuns get freed from the telepathy. They all seem a little bit confused about what's going on. Maria takes the talisman, stops the other Gorgons from coming through the portal, and then they all run off to go and save Alan. They put the talisman around his neck with a few minutes to spare. He gets de-stoned, and they plonk him on a bench outside to wake up because he's unconscious or whatever, which is lucky. They're like, put him outside, so he doesn't really remember anything about what's happened. It's all very convenient. Chrissy is like, hey, you know what I saw in that Sarah Jane's house? Except she doesn't say Sarah Jane because one of her things is always getting Sarah Jane's name wrong. I'm calling her like Mary Jane or like Sally J or whatever. And she's like, hey, you know what's in that Susie Hughes house? She is absolutely mad, and she had a big old statue of you, Alan. And they go round there, and of course everyone plays dumb, like, no, Chrissy, what are you on about? This is ridiculous, which is kind of basically gaslighting her, but sure. And Maria goes, hey, if this talisman can reset my dad, and I'm thinking, oh, are we going to do something about like resetting? Because she wanted everything to go back to how it was before, like the divorce and stuff. So it's like, are we thinking she's going to do that? How's she going to do that? No. She goes, Bee's got Alzheimer's. Maybe we can like reset her mind and cure that. And Sarah's like, well, but she's had it for years and years. This talisman. Wouldn't it have worked? And she's like, well, no. She had it hidden in a box. So maybe she hasn't touched it. So they go round to Bee's and they put the talisman on her. And it doesn't cure her Alzheimer's, which I'm quite glad about, because imagine if this show, like this episode, ended with, hey, we found the cure to Alzheimer's, and then they never like did anything about that. So I'm quite glad that they still go, no, this is a serious thing. We're not gonna, brush it off with our sci-fi. It's still gonna be a thing. But it does allow her to hear Edgar one last time saying, I'll always love you and stuff. And it's a very emotional scene, and I'm like, oh, this is lovely. I there's a lot more in this episode than I was expecting. It's just like very nicely done. And I'm not even sure if Edgar is credited in the credits, so I'm not sure if we find out who voices him. It's just for one line. And so as they're leaving, Maria talks about Sarah finding people to share her life with because Bea had Edgar, and Sarah says, well, she used to have. She doesn't explicitly say, I used to have the Doctor and now I have you, my gang. But she goes, I think I have found people to share my life with for a second time. And then Sarah drives off to show Maria something that sounds like a reference to some kind of royal fleet. And I looked it up, and it isn't actually a reference, but it sounds so much like a reference that it's like great fodder for a future thing. Like it's gotta be referenced in some kind of book or comic or whatever, or even a Big Finish audio. I mean, come on. At some point, I can't remember what it is, it's some kind of royal fleet, and I'm like, if that doesn't pop up somewhere in the future, they've missed a trick. And then roll credits. And next time is the Warriors of Kudlak, with a Cockney man and a cockroach man. So that sounds fun. So there's a few little things I looked up afterwards. B mentions a Yeti, and I think I remember my mum talking about that episode. Was it a Yeti? And she said, like, when they were crawling through a thing, you could see the zips on the backs of their suits, so it made them, like, significantly less scary. And also, here's something I completely didn't pick up on, but, like, I thought was really neat. And, like, a lovely little bit of just tying the world together, but not drawing much attention to it. Chrissy leaves to go back to, like, her boyfriend or whatever, at the end of the episode. And she gets in a taxi. And the taxi has an advert on it for the shop that Rose was working in the episode Rose. Which is great. I love that kind of thing. That's really neat. They had that little opportunity to add in a little thing to tie it together, and I really, really like that. It's like, yep, sure, this is a standalone show, but we are building this universe with little nods to adverts and all this kind of stuff. So I thought that was great. And that brings us to the end of this episode. And, you know, I was thinking, for, you know, we had our, like, pilot, and then we had our episode 1. So now we're on episode 2, and it's just kind of, this one kind of stands alone. You know, it's just they've had an adventure and saved the day and everything. And so, you know, it's not a great big end of episode thing. It's not a great big start of series thing. Not a great big end of series thing. But for what it was on its own little self-contained thing, I thought they did it really nicely. There were lots of nice moments in it. And sure, they forgot to take the number off the door, but only so I can laugh about it now, 14 or so years later. You know? I thought it was great. And I mean, I don't, it's not like pyramids where they go, oh, the pyramids were aliens. And, you know, it's like almost slightly offensive to Egyptian people, like, oh, what, Egyptian people couldn't build pyramids, huh? It had to be aliens. And it's like this, oh, the Gorgons were aliens, but I think it works here because the Gorgons weren't, you know, a building or anything. They're just a monster, and you can go, sure, that monster was an alien. It's kind of, it's a very Doctor Who-y thing to do, to go and pick something from history and go, but it was actually an alien, you know, and it doesn't necessarily take anything away from the actual Greek myth. I quite enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed that, and sure, it's I mean, it's a good show, and it ran off a few coincidences, and it's not a perfect episode really, but all in all, it's quite a good one. And again, quite a lot of this like came back to me, not all of it, but Warriors of Kudlak, I don't even really remember like what the story for that is. I remember Kudlak and his cockroachy face, but we'll have to see how much of that comes back to me next time, and I hope you join me there. So I'll see you then, and bye for now.